Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 18th of July, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So what an amazing and eventful weekend we had. Well, maybe mine was more eventful because I celebrated my 30th birthday. And thank you to everyone who wished me happy birthday. I really appreciate it. It was a fun time with friends and family, but it's all over now. I'm entering my 20s. I don't feel 30. Sorry, I'm exiting my 20s, entering my 30s. I don't really feel 30 years old. I feel much older than that because of crypto, which is funny, right? Like I feel like crypto moves so quickly, it just ages you faster. And I know a fair few people who have kind of like said this to me as well. So I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. But not only was it my 30th birthday over the weekend, but ETH decided to pump. I mean, all of crypto decided to pump, but ETH kind of went up, I guess, to about $1,500. I'm just looking at the chart now. It's come a little bit down from that, but it went up pretty quickly. Now, I don't know if, we've bottomed or if we're going to kind of like reverse the trend here or anything like that. I doubt it. I feel like this is just the first kind of like, I guess, good recovery we've had since the dumping began. And I think that, a lot of people are kind of like asking that question of, is this the bottom? Is it not? Look, I'm not into the near short term kind of like stuff. Yes, I pay attention to the price in the short term, but I don't base any of my decisions on my buying decisions or selling decisions based on that. I'm all about kind of like the big picture trends. And obviously you guys know I'm ultra bullish on ETH long term. I bought a lot of ETH at these lows, actually. I've been stacking as much as I can because, I feel it's just much safer to kind of like buy in bulk here than it was obviously much higher. But, I buy ETH when I can, basically. And you got to make up your own decisions of when you buy and when you sell and everything like that. Like you guys know I'm not selling. I'm just kind of trying to stack more validators. But, that's not a strategy for most people. Like definitely if you want to take profits, you should take profits. But, nothing I say on here is investment advice, but yeah, you guys know I've been buying kind of like down here, and I'm happy to wait. Like I'm not a short-term, medium-term investor. I'm a long-term investor, happy to wait, see how things play out, and I just have too many reasons to be bullish on ETH. Like I know the macro environment is still shit. I know that we had the biggest inflation numbers in 40 years last week. Like I get all that. But at some point, right, like the bleeding and the pain stops, and then you kind of like reverse a little bit, and maybe you just kind of trend sideways for a while. Like as I said, I don't think this is a reversal of a trend. I don't think that we're kind of going back into like a full blown bull market, and it can keep going up like before that. It comes back down to maybe retest these levels or something like that. Like ETH could go to 2.5K or something like that, but still come back down. Like, but for a trend reversal to be like fully confirmed, and I think I've discussed this on the refill before, it has to kind of go pretty high from the lows, and it has to kind of break some pretty key levels. And it's also just kind of like a feeling. Like whenever I've spotted a trend reversal, it's been a feeling for me more than anything kind of like based on fact. And it's kind of really hard to pinpoint when that feeling will come. It definitely hasn't come yet. I don't definitely I'm not saying we're going into a new bull market or anything like that, but it's good that we're getting some positive price action because I think it just makes the space a lot more positive. It gives hope to people. Hope is what we've got really at the end of the day. And it isn't just with the crypto markets. I think I'm thinking about this a lot more lately, especially over the last few months, not just got to do with crypto, but just generally. It's like hope is such a powerful emotion. It's what drives us to keep going. Sometimes obviously it's misplaced and you may keep going with something that is already dead. But I think a lot of the time, like most of the time, like hope is that thing that just drives us to keep going, drives us to keep living our lives, keep doing what we're doing, even through the dark days. And I think the people who have the most success in life are those who can kind of like hold on to that hope, but also be really realistic about it. Like obviously hoping for something to recover that, or like in investing, right? Holding on to a coin or hoping that it's going to recover, even though it's very obvious that it's dead, that's misplaced hope. But hoping that just generally crypto is going to recover and crypto is going to take over the world, and obviously we're going to have like things like decentralized finance and all the other use cases. Like that is, I think, well-placed hope from there. But individual investing decisions is obviously a harder thing from there. But if you take the big picture, look into crypto generally, but just into anything in life, I think hope is just very, very powerful. And that's something that I've always had, like hope for the future. I'm very, very hopeful and very, very positive and optimistic about the future, especially when it comes to Ethereum. And I hope that I hope that I kind of like, that comes across with the refuel. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Don't want to get too off track here. But yeah, there's a bunch of updates to get through from over the weekend. So we're going to start with some merge updates. So this just got announced, but basically Superfizz shared something here from GitHub where Tim Biko has proposed a Goerli TTD with a merge estimate of August 9th to August 11th. So it's basically official, I would say, like with the fact that there's kind of like a TTD being proposed or suggested here. Doesn't seem to be any pushback. I'll be monitoring core dev conversations. It seems that everyone is on the same page at this point in time. So yeah, Goerli will probably merge between August 9th and August 11th, which is the kind of like early to mid August prediction that a lot of people gave there, which means that if everything goes right with Goerli and goes kind of like well with Goerli, we will see hopefully the mainnet merge in mid to late September. So again, guys, like I went to it last week. We are so close. It's just incredible how close we are. And there are still lots of people who think that the merge is never happening. There are a lot of miners who still think it's not happening. There are a lot of people who are still memeing that kind of like it's going to be delayed again, or it's just going to be in perpetual delay kind of like land, when that's obviously not the truth. Like you can see it right here. And the funny thing is, like we've been going through these merge test nets, like Sepolia and Ropsten we've done already. Like that is done and dusted. That's not kind of like a coming soon thing. We did that. So there's no reason to believe that Goerli won't happen as scheduled, and there's no reason to believe that the mainnet merge won't happen. And I've already noticed the narrative shifting around, okay, well, the merge will happen, but like proof of stake is insecure, and proof of stake is this, and proof of stake is that. Okay, whatever. Like you can shift the goalposts as much as you want, but the fact of the matter is the merge is happening. We're having that massive kind of impact from the merge, and all those narratives surrounding it is going to come with it, which is just going to be absolutely awesome. And also, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to this website that's been around for a while. I may have shouted it out on the refuel before, but whenmerge.com basically tracks all of this stuff with a bunch of links and resources. So you can go definitely check it out. It's got like a countdown timer here for the difficulty bomb, for Goerli, and for mainnet. Now, these are obviously based on the soft targets. I guess Goerli has more of a hard target now, but this 19th of September for the mainnet merge is still a soft target. Definitely not set in stone just yet, but I'm not expecting any, I don't know, I struggle to call it a delay, but I'm not expecting much changes to that date if Goerli goes well. Like, doesn't really seem to be any other reason to change it. There has been a bit of discussion in core devs channels about people thinking that there hasn't been enough notice given to, solo stakers and other kind of people running validators about the fact that they have to run an Ethereum or execution layer full node. There has been, and like, I don't think any more notice is going to be needed at this point. Like, you've had months and months and months to be across this. There are guides everywhere for this. There is the merge readiness checklist. So yeah, I mean, just another reminder from me, if you're a solo staker, you definitely need to make sure that you're running a client-side execution node or execution full node, Geth, Nethermind, any of those sorts of things there, or else you can't outsource that to something like an Inferior Alchemy post-merge. So just a reminder there. But you can go to the merge readiness checklist that I've talked about a bunch of times. That walks you through it all there. And then finally on the merge, this is an interesting tweet I saw from Hal Press. You guys all know who Hal Press is from North Rock Digital here, who said, I think people misunderstand what the merge represents sometimes. This is not a trade where you must try to time your entries and exits perfectly. This is a structural shift. It's an investment more than a trade. These flows are never reversing. The merge will create the first structural demand asset in the history of crypto. You just need to buy before and then hodl. The structural flows will take care of the rest. Sure, there will be volatility and some short-term traders will try to sell the news at times. However, when you look back and later zoom out, I think that all will be noise. So this goes back to, I guess, like what I've talked about a lot, and obviously what Hal has talked about a lot, about that massive issuance reduction, right? That 80 to 90% issuance reduction in ETH kind of like issued per day. Obviously, miners have to sell that ETH, and there has been structural kind of like sell pressure because of that. And that's exactly what Hal is saying here. That we're literally removing that with the merge. Like, that is never coming back. Like, it's not like Ethereum is going to go back to proof of work from proof of stake. It's never happening. And like, it's funny that I say never. I mean, there's like an infinitely small chance that maybe one day that happens, but it's just not even worth thinking about. So it's never reversing. So you have this 80 to 90% issuance reduction that is never reversing, all this sell pressure that's just gone. And as Hal explained in his Bankless episode, it turns ETH into a structural demand asset. It's going to be net deflationary. Even at these low gas prices, it is going to be net deflationary. And even if it isn't, there is not enough ETH being issued. And there's not enough. I mean, we don't have withdrawals enabled, so the ETH issued can't be withdrawn until withdrawals are enabled. But there still isn't enough to make to kind of like make it like it was under proof of work. So, guys, it's just impossible not to be bullish. And I agree with Hal here, where he says it's not a trade, it's an investment. Like, it's a long-term investment. It's not something that you buy. Say you buy ETH at like $1,200 and then it goes up to $1,500. You're like, yeah. And then it goes back to $1,200 and you're like, oh no, my investment failed. No, that's a trade. Like, you shouldn't be looking at things like that. It's all about the long-term horizon. It's all about the long-term trade, especially when it comes to something like the merge. And I think that it's just, it cannot be priced in. It just cannot be, because of the fact that most people don't understand this. It's something that definitely can't be priced in. Hal has described this as well, where the fact is, you can compare it to something like Bitcoin halvenings, where Bitcoin halvenings are known in advance forever. Like, the Bitcoin issuance will halve every 4 years, all right? But they're never priced in, because the Bitcoin price keeps going up over time. The Bitcoin price goes up post halvenings, right? And that's because you can't price in the structural stuff, because at the end of the day, that 15 million, whatever $1 million it is now, I don't know the math off the top of my head, that's being sold from Bitcoin miners until the halvening happens, is not going to be sold. They have to sell it. So it's the same with the triple halvening, I guess that's being called in Ethereum. The miners still have to sell the ETH to pay for their operations. So it can't be priced in, unless there was the, I guess, demand to offset that, when a lot of the times there really isn't for a long period of time, because it's just a lot of money that needs to come in to support that to support a specific price. So once that kind of like sell pressure just evaporates, I'm just so curious to see what this is going to do to the price of ETH, even among all these kind of like headwinds from the macro environment and things like that. It just feels like it's just something that people just aren't considering, aren't paying enough attention to. I know you guys are. And I think that post-merge, it's going to de-risk a lot of the ETH trade as well. A lot of the people who are like, oh, what if something goes wrong at the merge? Once the merge goes well and everything's solid and everything's working fine, and Ethereum is a full proof of stake network, it's going to de-risk it for bigger players, for institutions, and I think they're going to pile in. I think there's going to be a flood of ETH going into staking as well, especially because post-merge we have the unburnt fee revenue going to stakers, we have MEV going to stakers. People are going to see that APY jump up, and they're going to be like, API, I guess. They're going to be like, I want a slice of that, and they're going to stake their ETH. So, like, it's like, even though, as I said, even though we have all these headwinds, guys, like, I struggle to be bearish on ETH. Like, maybe short term it's bearish. I mean, obviously, like, $4,900 to $800 and something dollars, like, that was a massive fall from all time high in 6 or so months. I get that, but at the same time, it's all about the long term. It's not about the 6 months. Like, when I say long term, guys, I'm talking about like 5+ years, sort of thing. Like, I have been holding ETH and stacking ETH since early 2017, since I first got into it. I have not sold any of it. I mean, like, it's always been part of my thesis that ETH would become a full proof of stake network. It would kind of like grow from there, and all the other stuff surrounding. I'm not going to rehash the bull case for ETH again. You guys already know it. But yeah, just thought that was an interesting tweet from Hal here. I'll link it in the YouTube description. You can go check it out if you want. All right, so another interesting tweet from Ethereumpools.info today, or a tweet thread, where they said, last week we explained how Ethereum rewards and penalties work in theory, but how do they look in practice? And this is kind of like a breakdown thread of kind of like the earned rewards per day, based on kind of like popular staking services here, as you can see, and addresses, annualized kind of rewards, and there's a thread kind of like explaining all of that and explaining where it has come from. So you can go check this out. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to it. You can check it out in the YouTube description below, because I think a lot of people don't realize that not everyone is getting the same reward, and there is a kind of like slight deviations in reward depending on a number of different factors. Like, if you're online 100% of the time, but someone else is only online 90% of the time, well, they're obviously not going to get the same amount of rewards as you are for the year. Like, if you count it as a year basis from January 1st to December 31st, if you count the whole year, if you're online 100% of the time, you're definitely going to be netting more rewards than someone who's only online 90% of the time. And the same is true for kind of like proposing blocks and things like that. Like, over a year, it should be more or less equal among validators, but it's not always an exact science. So if you take just those 365 days, and maybe someone one address proposed more blocks than another, well, then technically they're going to have more ETH earned. But on average, as long as you're kind of like online most of the time and you're proposing blocks and all that good stuff there, you should net out to about the same kind of like rewards here. But you can see the deviations. I mean, there are small deviations like 4.55%, 4.46%, but then there are larger deviations. Some people are only having 3.78%, whereas some are having up to 4.74%. So the deviations, as I said, depend on a number of different factors, and that's what Ethereumpools.info is kind of like quantifying here for you. And I think it's good to keep in mind. And it's probably going to deviate more depending on like post-merge with regards to fee revenue and MEV too. Like especially MEV. MEV is definitely going to make this deviate a lot more because there'll be people who don't run MEV boost as old solo stakers. There'll be staking pools that may not run it. There'll be kind of like different things going on with MEV. Maybe solo stakers do their own sort of thing. It remains to be seen, but there's going to be more deviation here with rewards. And the same is true for miners. Like if a miner is offline for 10% of the year and only online for 90% of it, well, obviously they're going to earn 10% less rewards than a miner that's on for 100% of the time. So it's all about rewarding the people, proportionate to the work that they do. And I think Ethereum Proof of Stake does a really good job of that. All right, so Mahalo put out a tweet here saying, "Our dream when we started Polygon was to become the go-to Web3 platform, one that will constantly push the frontiers of innovation and adoption until we bring the world to Ethereum. In 4 days, a new chapter will start. Polygon is reaching where we always wanted to be." So Polygon has been teasing this massive ZK EVM announcement that they're going to be doing on, I believe, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Paris time, because they're at ETC at the moment, the big Ethereum conference there. So I believe it's going to be announced at Wednesday at 1 p.m. Paris time, whatever time that is. I don't know what local time it is for me, but that's, I think, when it's going to be announced. And, I mean, always these announcements are hyped up and everything like that. And I guess like it depends on what you're expecting from it. I don't know what's coming. Like you guys know I'm an advisor to Polygon, but they haven't told me what's coming or anything like that. So I don't know what the announcement is going to be. Obviously the Matic price has been going up a fair bit recently. I think it's one of the best performers of the last week or something like that because of, I think, this hype. But if anything, Polygon doesn't just talk. They also kind of like deliver. Like if they do anything, it's like delivering, and they deliver on a number of different fronts. Obviously, you guys know that their business development is, I've talked about this before, is probably the best in the industry, but they do deliver on the tech side of things as well. So I'm really curious to see what this is. Hopefully it lives up to the hype here, but I mean, like there's been hyped so much, like I don't know like how it can live up to the hype at some point. Like there are some things that just get hyped so much and some people are disappointed, some people aren't. I just think it's going to be a big deal. I think if it's got to do with zkVM, it definitely sounds like it's going to be a big deal. I'm definitely super pumped for it. So we're going to see what happens here. But yeah, I guess like we'll have to see on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Paris time. Hopefully that is before I record the refuel for Wednesday. I don't know if it will be, but we'll see. I'm sure you guys will see it on Twitter anyway. You won't need me to tell you about it, but I just wanted to kind of like highlight it there. All right, so when Nitro, that's what everyone's been asking about lately when it comes to Arbitrum. Well, we don't have Nitro just yet, or a date for Nitro just yet, but we have the new Nitro Goerli testnet for the Arbitrum rollup is now live. So this will replace the current Nitro Goerli devnet, and they'll be migrating their Rinkeby testnet to Nitro this month. So this blog post goes into more detail about this, but I guess the fact that this testnet is kind of like being migrated here means that we're probably relatively close to Nitro on Arbitrum mainnet. I hope so. Like I discussed this when the Odyssey event was paused, but basically like I really hope Nitro is coming soon because Arbitrum had so much amazing momentum with their Odyssey event. Like there were so many people kind of like using it, so much activity on the network. I really hope they can capture that again once Nitro is live. And I understand the reasons why they paused it until Nitro was live. But yeah, it seems like it's close here. The fact that they're kind of like migrating their test nets seems like to me that they're gearing up for a mainnet release, hopefully soon, maybe next month, maybe sooner than that. I'm not sure, but it has to be close at this point, right, guys? Like, I mean, I hope so. I hope it's close. But anyway, you can read this blog post for more information about the kind of like test nets here. But obviously, it won't apply to most of you since you won't be using the test nets. But I think reading between the lines, it must mean that Nitro is coming relatively soon. So keep my fingers crossed for that. We'll see how it goes. All right, so speaking of teasers, zkSync is also teasing something. So you can see here a little exchange between one of the co-founders of zkSync and I think maybe their marketing person here, where Gluck64 says, "We're good to go. Are we ready to announce next week?" And Perks just says, "Yup." So I guess like it's major. I guess we'll see. Like, as I said about the Polygon announcement, we'll see how major these kind of like announcements are. And I think next week, so this was posted on July 16th. Next week means this week. So there seems to be a big zkSync announcement coming this week, along with the Polygon announcement. We'll see how they both are. Hopefully, they're kind of like living up to the hype. I don't know. Like, as I said, guys, like there's always too much hype around things. And I don't think anything's ever lived up to the hype. I know, you know what? I think EIP 1559 lived up to the hype because everyone was hyping like how much ETH it would burn, and no one really believed it. And then everyone was like, "Wow, we're actually burning a lot of ETH." So I think it did live up to the hype. But generally, these things are kind of like hit or miss with people. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what zkSync has up their sleeves. Some people are saying, "Oh, it's the token." Other people are saying it's zkSync 2.0 going live. Other people are saying it's zk Porter. We'll have to see. Like they've got a lot of stuff in the works. I'm not sure exactly what's going to be going live here, but I'm curious to see kind of what shakes out there. So definitely looking forward to that. Obviously, I'll cover it on the refuel once we get the news out. All right, so I came across this amazing thread here from Marceau. God, I can't pronounce that. I am very, very sorry for pronouncing that wrong. But anyway, this thread is about Rocketpool and how they're going to be scaling the Rocketpool service to service more customers, basically. So the TLDR here is that Rocketpool is quietly building at least 3 massive scaling solutions that will enable it to have a 1,000 times growth and easily compete at scale with Lido. This gets me going, guys. Like, this is what gets me excited. I've said before how I believe that Rocketpool has only been limited by the fact that they have some hard limitations that they really had to work around, really had to work on in order to get more people to want to stake with the Rocketpool service. So this thread does an excellent job of covering all of that, so I highly recommend giving it a read. But basically gives a bit of background about kind of what the liquid staking liquid staking environment looks like right now, and then basically going into the 3 major upgrades that are coming. So one of them is less ETH bonded mini pools. So basically getting the bond requirement down from 16 ETH to 4 ETH. So that is a huge improvement, obviously. Then the second is staking as a service. So staking as a service will enable big fish to participate in staking in the most trust minimized and yield generative way currently available. And there's a nice little chart here explaining how that works. Obviously, you can check it out in the thread for yourself. And then third is integrated solo staker migration. So basically, as part of a credential update that's expected in the Capella hard fork, Rocketpool is able to offer a direct migration into their ecosystem, which would be higher yielding. So basically allowing large staking providers and individuals chasing yield and converting their existing validators to Rocketpool validators. That's very cool. That is actually probably the coolest thing for me, because of the fact that allowing people to easily migrate is definitely what's needed post kind of like withdrawals, because of the fact that I've talked about this great reshuffling before. Obviously that can't happen until withdrawals are enabled, and once withdrawals are enabled, Rocketpool has a perfect opportunity to seize the kind of like moment here and get those people to migrate over, because there will be migrations happening and it needs to be as easy as possible. So if we can get as many of those people into Rocketpool as possible, then that's going to be awesome. So I think that's probably the biggest thing here. Obviously the other two are quite big as well. I definitely like the collateral requirement dropping, because that'll enable obviously more kind of like RETH to be minted and more Rocketpool nodes to be spun up and all that good stuff there. But definitely that ease of migration is a big factor here. And as I said before, making it as easy as possible for people to both solo stake and stake with decentralized services like Rocketpool should be our number one goal as an Ethereum staking community. And I think it is for the Rocketpool community, for the ETH staking community, and all the ones surrounding them. I think that they've definitely been working on this for quite a while, and it's something that they obviously know is needed because of something like, Lido having so much dominance. But as I've said before, Lido's dominance goes down with more competition, better competition, right? Like, a Rocketpool is good competition, but it needs to be better to compete, and that, they know that, and they're taking that on board, and that's why they're coming up with these improvements, and these improvements are coming out over the next 6 to 12 months. And then also, obviously, we need beacon chain withdrawals to be enabled for that great reshuffling to take place there, and also the social signaling too, like getting more people aware of Rocketpool. They've been doing their Bankless Blitz campaign and all that good stuff there, which I think has worked wonders, and it's nice to see Bankless spinning up Rocketpool kind of validators and nodes as well with the money that they're getting, or with the RPL tokens that they're getting from the sponsorship. So all of that is, awesome social signaling. It gets more people involved. And, I've never been more bullish on Rocketpool. Like, I hold a bunch of RPL that was generously gifted to me. It's all on my public address. And I'm comfy with it. Like, honestly, very, very comfy with it. I think that it's not investment advice, but I think that, if anything in kind of like the Ethereum ecosystem is worth betting on, it's Rocketpool. Like, honestly, they're the most Ethereum aligned project, I think. I'm not trying to pick favorites here or anything, but like, they've been building for so long. The community is just so Ethereum aligned. They're working so hard to build a truly decentralized staking service. I honestly can't think of, many other projects that would be as Ethereum aligned as Rocketpool is, especially Ethereum aligned while also building a product that is directly related to Ethereum, security, sustainability, and all its values, and obviously proof of stake and everything surrounding that as well. So I'm going to stop gushing over Rocketpool there, but definitely read this thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, and you should also read this simplified Rocketpool node setup here from Fast Contract. Because this is a guide. It was published in May. It wasn't a recent thing, so maybe you've already seen it. But this is a guide of kind of like how to set up your own Rocketpool node in a very simplified way. Step-by-step, hardware, software, all that good stuff there. You can check out this kind of like guide. I'll also link that in the YouTube description below. All right, so I came across this new project, which is called Empiric Network, which they're saying is a zk native oracle for the zk future of blockchain. Now, this is going to be deployed, I believe, on Starknet or Starkware's technology first. And you can see here that they've been backed by a bunch of, I guess, kind of like different data partners such as Alameda, Jane Street, FTX, Gemini, Flow Traders, and CMT Digital here. And you can read the blog post for, I guess, like a deeper dive into this, but I just want to put this on your radar as another Starkware project that I came across. And having a zk native oracle could be very cool for enabling private DeFi. Obviously, we have Aztec Connect that went live, I think the week before last week, for private DeFi, but more and more of this stuff is coming online, and it's coming online at layer 2. It's not going to be at layer 1, guys. Like, forget about layer 1. Layer 2 is where to look for Ethereum innovation, Ethereum application innovation, I should say. It's all going to be happening on there from now on, I believe. All right, so Sismo has released their first Ethereum kind of like power users ZK badge in alpha, so you can meet yours here. So this is the first experiment around novel governance mechanisms based on reputation and privacy preserving voting. And this is a mini thread about the kind of like thread about the experiment here. So I've discussed Sismo before. Basically, the, I guess, like magic going on here is that you can essentially prove that you own something without revealing the address that owns it. So, for example, you could prove that you have like 1,000 ETH on, which is for a crazy example here. You can prove that you have 1,000 ETH on, that you own 1,000 ETH without revealing the address that 1,000 ETH belongs to. Now, obviously, that is just kind of a very simple example, but you can extend this out to stuff like governance. Say you don't want people to know how much of a governance token kind of like you hold, but you want to participate in governance, right? So, well, you can basically have that governance token on an address. You can issue yourself a kind of like ZK badge that is cryptographically sound and basically says, yes, you can participate in governance because you actually have these tokens on another address and you have kind of like the ability to participate on another address without revealing what address that is. I think that's really, really cool and has a bunch of obviously kind of like use cases, and you can kind of like keep extending this out to things like reputation, and privacy preserving voting and all that sort of stuff there. But yeah, you can check out the, I guess, like alpha mint here at this address. I'll link it in the YouTube description. But you can also check out the mini thread here for a kind of explanation as to what's going on below. All right, finally here we have an article from Stu, which is discussing BLS signature aggregation under the hood. So if you're into basically cryptography, if you're into diving deeper into the things that make the beacon chain work, well, you should definitely check out this blog post. It is, I don't think it's too technical. It is kind of like a little bit technical. It does dive into a bunch of stuff that you may not be able to kind of like digest through a first or second read, but it's definitely something that aspiring cryptographers, aspiring people who are maybe looking to become core developers should definitely give a read of there. So I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to read. And I guess like great little piece here from Stu. I read through it. Obviously, I didn't understand everything, but I read through it and thought it was just a great overview of BLS signature aggregation, which is what enables us to have so many validators on the beacon chain. I mean, we would not be able to have 410,000 validators and counting on the beacon chain without BLS signature aggregation. So that's a little fun fact there for those who didn't know that. It's basically what enables us to kind of like be as decentralized as we are, and it's kind of magic how they work as well. So definitely check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description, but that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.